Hey everyone, today we are actually going to be visiting an old video that I made a couple years ago, but there's like little seeds of knowledge in there that I think if you're out there in the wild looking for jewelry for yourself and going a little jewelry treasure hunts, I think these tips are going to help you. Today we were talking about how to identify like nice and fine jewelry versus the junk stuff while you're out there in the wild, just like looking at things, maybe even just at a glance. I figure it's yard sale season, at least around here it is, and this is kind of the prime time where people are having yard sales, estate sales, garage sales, all that sort of thing. And a lot of times you can score some like seriously good jewelry at these sales. So I wanted to arm you with some knowledge, and be sure to stay to the end. I'm going to add one more tip in there, something that I personally do and travel with. It will make sense when we get there. So hang out to the end and that will be what we talk about. But for now, here are the tips. How can you tell just looking at some jewelry at a glance if it's fine jewelry or not? For resale purposes, we're generally going for the stuff that's going to give us a bigger bang for our buck. I will say, disclaimer, costume jewelry is not always cheap. There are a lot of pieces that go for a good chunk of change. But let's jump into my kind of rules, as it were, for spotting fine jewelry. Rule number one, and this is the most important rule that there is, in my humble opinion, and that's identifying the metal of the piece of jewelry you are looking at. On necklaces, a lot of time this is going to be on the clasp itself or maybe near the clasp. There might be like a little hang tag down that's got the marking on it of what it is. And rings, it's actually on the inside of the band. Educate yourself on marks. Look this stuff up before you get out there and go shop so you know what you're looking for, because there's a lot of jewelry that comes, especially like here in the US, we have a different marking system than they do in European countries. And so sometimes you'll see something like 585 and you have no idea what that is because that's not 10K or 14K. Look up those numbers and familiarize yourself with them so that you're not confused when you go to practice this stuff to try to get nicer jewelry. This piece here says 925. You know what? I'm going to get back to him. Let's talk about this one. This is a fantastic example of crappy jewelry. It is all fake. It is fake from the top down. The first indication, though, is that it's unmarked on the inside, and you can see this looks like a more modern piece. So some of the really old pieces are going to be exceptions to all of these rules. Things get pretty murky the further you go back on your jewelry. There's just so many factors that I'm going to talk about that just do not apply. For example, the markings. If you find a really old piece, it might not have any markings on it at all. So you'll have to look for some other indications. But this one is unmarked. And let's kind of segue. We'll just segue right here into tip number 2. Look at the metal itself. So even if it is marked, you need to look at the actual piece. So as you can see on this piece, there is some wear and the plating is coming off around the gallery that's holding the stone in place. Actually on both sides. Hopefully you can see that okay in the camera. And this is why I wanted to talk about this ring here. Another fakey through and through. Because even though on the inside of the band it's marked 925, when you inspect the band, you'll see that there's actually copper shining through where it's been scuffed. And if this was actual silver, that would not be happening. So take a look at the metal and see if any of that is, plating just coming off. You should not be seeing a copper color at all. Tarnished pieces, and this is one right here, it's just kind of looks more like dirty, maybe, kind of like a gunmetal kind of color. And it's kind of consistent over the whole piece. You're not just going to find one spot where it's very drastically like silver and then bam, copper. No, that's bad. That's bad metal. That's not silver. This one is just tarnished all the way and even on the inside too. It's just a natural thing that happens with silver. Polish it or don't polish it. It's all your preference and how you feel about silver jewelry. I personally like to polish it, but this one's not because it's for sale. And some people won't even touch pieces that are bright silver. They hate it. They love the tarnishing. So anywho, it's all up to our preference, right? The heart wants what it wants. All right, enough about tarnish and chip plates. So look for the chip plates. The plating, there we go. That's why I said plate. The plating, look at the plating, see if it's worn off in any spots. All right, the next tip, look at the prongs. So this here is a brooch that I picked up at a secondhand store. And maybe at a glance, you can't really tell if those are real sapphires and perhaps aquamarine or topaz. But my first indication glancing at this piece is the prongs. The prongs look cheap to me. If they don't look cheap to you, just the way they look is they're kind of like claw-like, if you will. They're very pointed. And I think the reason that they do this, and correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, because I've never created costume jewelry before, but I believe what they do is they like set a mold for the piece. They create the metal mold first, then they set the stones into it and then like fold the prongs over it. I mean, this is kind of, you know, I wonder if I can, yeah, I can bend those prongs pretty easily. I'm not going to be able to just very easily bend prongs on a nicer piece of jewelry like this one, for example. So on this, even though the prongs are somewhat pointed, you can tell the quality of the prong work is better, all around better. It's just something maybe over time that you will notice as you're looking at more and more pieces of jewelry. You'll be able to see it right away if it's in cheap metal or not. One more thing I wanted to mention about the prongs before we move on is sometimes you'll see, like in this costume piece here, the prongs are there, they're smoothed out, they look okay, but they're not even touching the gemstone. Prongs should be laid right snug up against the gemstone, protecting the edges of it and holding it into the piece. If they're not overlapping the gemstone whatsoever, you are looking at a lower quality piece. Next tip, and we'll pick up this piece again to talk about this, is look on the back. If your gemstones are encased in the metal, they are probably not real. And the reason they do this is because these little glass rhinestone pieces, they don't have enough light refraction to give it the sparkle that we like to see, all that flash. At least, I mean, that's sometimes a big piece of the reason of why I pick certain pieces. I'm just all sorts of tongue twisted tonight because I like the sparkle. So the reason they put the silver and like highly reflective metals behind the gemstones or the faux gemstones is so that you have more sparkle coming through the top. There's another example of that here. And if you look at the side, you can see that it's open and it's even open underneath. However, on closer inspection, there is a coating on the underside, like a metallic coating, to help give that sparkle. So sometimes, even if you do see that it's open underneath, look a little closer at that stone, because if there's a coating on it, you can see that it isn't the same clarity all the way through top to bottom. Chances are you're looking at a fake. All right, the next thing I wanted to talk about really quick are dead stones in pieces. So let's say you have this piece of jewelry, it's unmarked, it looks like it's a white metal of some sort, maybe white gold, maybe platinum if you're really lucky, and there are just gemstones encrusted all over the piece. Well, here is an example of a watch I purchased on a whim, hoping it had value, knowing nothing about watches. I knew it was fake, but I was hoping it was valuable. I still haven't found out about this watch, so if this strikes any chords in you, please leave me a comment and let me know if this is anything special. But as you can see, there's spots on this watch that kind of look like stones are missing, but on closer inspection, they are there, but it's darkened behind the stone. So when you look down at it, it looks like the stone is blackened, and that is what are known as dead stones. So dead stones happen with artificial stones. Just as a natural part of the aging process, you see this a lot with vintage pieces. And apparently you can clean it. I've never tried, and this one I'm afraid to submerge it into anything since it's a watch and I don't want to screw anything up with liquid. But anyway, So yeah, if you see a piece and there are some darkened stones, you see dead stones, you're probably looking at artificial gemstones. The last thing I just wanted to talk about really quickly is just inspecting the piece for the quality of the metalwork. If it's a precious metal and precious gemstones, usually the person who's creating that piece of jewelry is going to be paying attention to detail on finishing that piece. Is the metalwork looking pretty good and pretty symmetrical and consistent in quality? Then you may have a higher end piece. Or you have a fakey fake like this guy here. So let's take a really quick look at this guy. At a glance, I mean, it's marked 925. It had these stones. We know because I showed you earlier that the plating is coming off, but let's say the plating was fine and you're still looking this over. You can see there are some inconsistencies in this metalwork. There is, on this side, in between this open work here, next to the mill grain, there's like little pieces of metal that are coming up into what should probably be open. And it's actually coming up a little higher on one side than it is on the other. So right there, it's inconsistent, but when you turn it to the other side, it's actually completely open on both sides. So it's just kind of like a weird flaw that you wouldn't find in a quality piece. The other thing about this piece, another indicator that it's fake, is the undergallery. You'll see the gemstones enclosed like we talked about earlier. So bad metalwork, enclosed gemstone, scraped off plating, showing copper. This thing is screaming fake. All right, I hope you guys found all that informative. And now I'm going to talk about the one thing that I carry with me literally everywhere I go, a black light. These little mini flashlights will help you so much when you're on your little treasure hunting. It may feel a little awkward to pull this out of your purse and inspect jewelry with it, but I'm telling you, this thing can help so much. They make little tiny ones that will even hang from your keychain if like something like this feels a little intimidating to be carrying around. So just get a small one. Even the small ones will be helpful. And let me tell you why I think every jewelry hunter should have a black light. The black light, aka UV light, can be absolutely invaluable at spotting really nice gemstones. And today we're going to go over just a few of them, what you can find, and I will end with my favorite one. So first of all, the ones that come off the top of my head, one that a lot of people know about is amber. If you've been collecting jewelry for a while, you probably already know that amber will fluoresce for you. Usually it's kind of like a yellow color. Sometimes you get a little bit of a green, and sometimes, oops, sorry, knocked over my flashlight. Every once in a while you do get a blue. And so taking that flashlight with you can help. You know, amber can be tricky, and there are some imitation plastics and acrylics and lucite's that will also fluoresce similarly. So just use your judgment. It's best to study all these gemstones before you go hunting for them in the wild. If you see it and it doesn't fluoresce, probably not real amber. So it does help with that. The other one that I use it a lot for is finding rubies. Now rubies will glow like crazy. Okay, they are super bright when they glow, like a hot pink. And this is also true in my experience with pink sapphires, which is, I don't want to say it's the same gemstone, but it's pretty much the same gemstone as a ruby. Sapphires and rubies, just for your knowledge, same gemstone really. It's corundum is the actual name of it. For whatever reason, I need to research this. I would love to, so I could educate you on it, but I don't know. If it's red, it's ruby. And every other color is a sapphire. So some of these ones that are pink hues and kind of like creep into the red color spectrum, but aren't necessarily considered sapphires, rubies, they still glow. I don't have an example of these ones, but I've heard that alexandrite fluoresces, and another one is red spinel, similar to ruby, but maybe not quite as bright, should also fluoresce. And some other honorable mentions in the glowing thing are certain types of calcites, and maybe not surprising because of the name, some fluorites will also fluoresce. But the big banger that I personally like to use the light for, diamonds. Not all diamonds glow. Okay, let me put that out there. So if you have a ring that just has a solitary diamond in it, this little test doesn't necessarily work. However, the percentage of diamonds that glow is like roughly 25 to 35% according to the GIA's website. And so this is important because if you find a ring with a lot of diamonds in it, not just one, and you use the black light and one of them or two of them are glowing, you may very well have real diamonds in front of you. I'm going to show you some examples on the screen of rings that I own and how they fluoresce. And you can see that not all of them glow, but a few of them will. In the case of my 6-stone band, only one of them does, but that's totally fine. And I've also found varying degrees of use of this trick on the colored diamonds as well. I've found that on the champagne diamonds, it's very noticeable. However, on the blue diamonds, not as noticeable. I'm sure it has to do something with the treatment of the diamonds to get them the blue color that they are. You can kind of see some subtle differences, but not as easy to tell as it is with the white ones. So there you go. That is my list of tips and tricks for you when you're out there hunting for jewelry this yard sale season and beyond. I hope you found them helpful. Tell me in the comments if you learned anything new, or if you have any tips or tricks to share with everybody else who's reading the comments right now. And thank you guys so much for joining me on this one. I hope to see you back here another time. And if you're not done hanging out, please try the video on your screen right now. Hang out with me there. All right, everybody, have an awesome day, and I will see you hopefully on the next one. Bye.